Hey, so my name is Stephen Graves. I am the founder and CEO of CertifiedTrue, and this is the very first Certified True podcast, videocast, vlog, something or another. Anyway, where you get to watch me talk about what we're doing. So that's what we're here for. You can see I am in the official, very official Certified True Cert Team shirt. So all of that makes it official. And coming to you from our very high-end studio, you can see, like Jurassic Park, we spared no expense. So let's talk about a little bit about our company, Certified True, and what it does, why we're doing it, and really what makes us different, really, than a number of the other blockchain stuff that's out there, and what our vision is for the future. Okay, well, first of all, if you'll notice, you see everywhere we bill ourselves as the trusted name in blockchain for the legal, insurance, and real estate industries. So our real focus is in these three industries because we believe that they are going to be the biggest users of blockchain going forward. They have some of the deepest needs. They have a lot of use cases which are very clear to be able to be used, but they're going to need a lot of help to get there. And that's one of the reasons why we're focused on them. At their core, they are very process-heavy industries, information processing in particular, and they have a lot of need for being able to determine data provenance and a chain of custody of that data, understanding where it came from, and authenticating the data so they can make sure that you have the right origin and it's the right materials, and that the information ultimately can be trusted, and that the actual blockchain itself or registry is the one source of truth that can be trusted across the industry. So that's kind of what we're doing. Certnet is made up of better to say Certified True. Certified True is made up of Certnet, our proprietary, awesome blockchain, our own proprietary protocol built on Hyperledger Sawtooth, and we'll talk more about that in either, probably not today, but in some subsequent videos. And love to talk to you more about that. We've spent about a year and a half working on some of this stuff. And also Certified Works, which is our app and smart contracts development arm, which also is going to be producing our first application, which is Certified Photo. And in fact, Certified Photo was our original idea of how we came about with Certified True, is because originally we were looking for an application to have authenticated photo documentation, and it really wasn't a blockchain application at all as originally envisioned. But as we begin to build out the requirements and think about it, that's how it came about, was that we realized blockchain was the only technology which really could guarantee the ability to authenticate not only kind of a timestamp, which, kind of a standard blockchain stuff, but rather to be able to authenticate the origin of a digital photo, and who took it, and when it was taken, and where it was taken. And that this was very important for certain industries, like legal, insurance, and real estate, who might have a dispute about the contents of that photo and wanted to make sure that there wasn't any fraud going on, or just misremembering. So as we began to build out the requirements for that, we were looking to begin to build it on a network, an existing network like Ethereum or others. And we realized that, well, as most of you probably know by now, blockchains don't scale that well. And so, they don't scale that well, especially for low value, high volume, low latency type transactions. And so by really beginning to study all of the different variants of what was in, I'll say, in August or so of 2017, um, we decided, gosh, it just wasn't ambitious enough that we create a world killer app, but we needed to create a new blockchain because the world needs a new blockchain. And so, but we did, and we began really looking and studying how we could build this. And again, we'll talk more about our architecture and whatnot at a later point. But effectively, it's a good question of, well, why these industries and why do we want to focus on those? Because I know in a lot of the crypto space, why, especially this early on, why do we want to pigeonhole yourself into a subset or a submarkets? But overall, we see that these are vast, and most of the people in the crypto industry don't really understand how really vast these industries are. They're probably some of the three of the biggest buckets that there are, especially if you look at sub-industries of theirs, both in insurance and in real estate, construction, etc. So, I mean, we understand there's a really large need, and being able to look at it in this early stage gives us a leg up. We also understand that really, although there's a lot of hype in these industries, and there has been an enormous amount of hype about blockchain, oh my gosh, it's blockchain, and so a lot of large industries, they'll have consulting arms come in there and charge them, $3,000-4,000 a day for a person to hook up either their own private network or different elements. And most of what happens is that a lot of that spending has not really been lived up to the value proposition that was promised. And one of the reasons is that much of the early understanding of blockchain didn't really have a good understanding of the core business processes of the industries that they're trying to focus on. And at its core, Certified True is focused on not necessarily, hey, we're going to be all this really super new blockchain business, but really our focus is actually being the preeminent provider of blockchain services to these three industries, and really more focused on solving old business problems with new technology. Because we know, legal insurance and real estate, they don't really care anything about blockchain. They don't, they could care less about technology. They don't want to run any nodes. They don't want to, they don't want to actually have to administer this architecture. In much of the same way that many of them really don't want to do data storage. And that's why AWS and others of the storage providers, and I say just storage providers, obviously AWS does a lot more than that, but being able to outsource the servers. I mean, most people remember, you had to do all of your own network in-house, and everybody had a server, you had an admin, and, a lot of times there's just a lot of infrastructure that you didn't want to manage. And so now we have infrastructure as a platform. You have all these different services as a platform, and effectively blockchain services, I believe, are as a platform. And effectively, that's what Certnet is a smart contracts platform geared to solve a number of the adoption issues within these three industries. Because it doesn't matter so much about, this super new, uber great technology, and that's wonderful. But the real question is, how do you get adoption? How do you get people using it? Because whether you're a utility coin, whether you're a securities token, it doesn't really matter what kind of coin or anything else is there. All that really matters in the end is how useful is this to some part, for some function of the market. And if it has real utility of some sort that you can measure, then you're going to be able to extract some value for the company that is actually organizing and running that, because you're being able to provide value that that some function or some customer actually enjoys. And that's what we're looking for, is to be able to provide value to these industries by taking a lot of the hard work out of blockchain. Because let's face it, blockchain is hype, is awesome. It's going to change the world, and I do believe that. In fact, I believe that in 10 years from now, blockchain will be completely pervasive across pretty much most industries, but especially these industries. And it will be largely invisible, much like e-commerce is today. And during the early dot-com days, it was all just slap .com onto something. And sure enough, it would sell. Pets.com was an infamous example that didn't end up lasting through the wars, so to speak. But there were those who succeeded. But in the end, the ones who succeeded were, the protocols and the undergirding infrastructure that made e-commerce possible. And so business was able to begin doing things that they had always done, but perhaps in slightly different ways, which is taking their products and selling it to people. Whether it's on Amazon or whether it was directly or whatever, but essentially it simply made a new channel to do the same things that they had been always doing, but to do them in a slightly different and new way that made their offerings more capable of providing better customer service, for example, providing better responsiveness, more customization, etc. And blockchain allows the same thing. But part of the problem has been is that the technology is very hard to implement, because it's new. And so these kind of old guard industries, they're not really, I'll say they're not exactly up on some of these technologies. And frankly, getting people who really do understand the core technology and understand enough of the business applications, those are very rare and few and far between, and frankly very expensive and hard to get those resources to coming to work for you in these different industries. The other thing is these current platforms require a lot of coding knowledge. I mean, if you're wanting to put a smart contract on a blockchain, you have to be a programmer, and more than just a programmer. You've got to be a programmer who understands a particular type of code really well, because if you make a mistake, the results can be disastrous. So unlike in just a coding mistake, which obviously code is often full of bugs, but this is an area where you can't actually have those mistakes and very costly errors. The other thing is, in these three industries right now, there's no real standard. And we see for adoption to happen, one of the areas that really has to happen is a standardization process across commonly used code. And I say that in the sense that you have commonly used code in smart contracts, which, smart contracts are a bit of a misnomer. They're neither smart and they're not contracts, legally speaking. So you have to have a way of being able to reuse the most commonly templates, and that reduces a lot of risk if they're known templates and they're kind of already authorized by some authority that you can trust. So even in a trustless system, there is a lot of reason for trust, and trust works in the business world. Reputation and trust is very important. In in the technology world, we want to have programmatic trust, so that you don't have to trust people. You know that there's no way of getting around the system. But in the real business world, the reality is that you can never get around having a certain reputational trust of the systems that you're using. So even when it's all about the technology, ultimately you still have to trust that some parts aren't compromised, and that the company there is doing the right thing, etc. There's still a lot of trust involved. So I guess the question is, okay, so how are we solving this problem? Well, first of all, Certnet, our blockchain, and again, we'll spend some great time on our protocols and just the super cool things that we've been working on for more than a year with our awesome team. And I encourage you guys, don't just take a look at me as great as I no doubt look in my awesome Certified True shirt. But beyond that, be sure to check out our team. I mean, we have a really incredible, incredible team that's been really helping figure out some of these really difficult problems. And when you're developing a protocol, both from the incentive models and actually getting code on paper, because a lot of people talk blockchain, but not a lot of people can actually develop blockchain. But now, our Certnet is our blockchain network, and it's a smart contracts platform that makes it easy and safe to create, to deploy, and to run smart contracts and apps at enterprise scale. So yes, we've designed it both in a very modular architecture. I'll say this really, in a sense, we see Certnet as three things: a protocol. So we've structured a very created a very modular architecture, which is almost plug and play for a lot of the components, and added where we can add additional layers without actually having to fork the previous layers or actually touching the ledger itself, which we believe is very important, and focused on a pre-consensus protocols as well. But we allow that we've built it in such a way that allows the network to scale for these high volume, low latency, low value transactions. We don't know about if it's going to be scaling to the ability for IoT type applications, where that type of low value over many different types. But but we're focused on certainly to where in these applications where you have large businesses bringing on their entire enterprise level of transactions across. That's the kind of service that our service level agreements are there to provide, and so we need to be able to perform. We're a platform, so we have an extensible framework that enables programming in Solidity language. We're also going to be focused on a GUI layer so that it makes it easy to create smart contracts without having deep programming experience. So yes, you heard that right. Certnet is actually, if you can program in Solidity, then you can actually build it and to deploy a contract on Certnet. It will not be running on Solidity or on Ethereum, but we do use the same programming language because it is a forked version of their EVM. And we'll talk more about that later. But in reality, we also expect that in the future, and our plans are to, one of our transaction processor, remember we're a modular system, so we are actually able to use multiple programming languages to develop applications and smart contracts on. We will also, eventually looking to be putting WASM as well, and so we would have the same programming languages as both the two currently the largest systems, which are EOS and Ethereum. So the last thing is, I would say we're a marketplace, and I use that word reservedly because there's so much how to put that nicely, but extraneous, flotsam and jetsam, shall we say, in the ICO world of just out of all those thousands and thousands are talking about whole new marketplaces and everything else, in which, frankly, most of them, you read through these white papers, and you really should read everybody's white paper before you ever invest in anybody's company or use them. Really, dig into what they're doing. Does it pass the smell test? If you can't understand a white paper, guess what? Then it's probably not you. I've read a lot of white papers. There are some very, very, very technical white papers by crypto PhDs that I begin to, I really have to think about for a while before I can really, break it down into English, shall we say. But other than that, really, most of these, where I find you can't read a white paper, they're designed to obfuscate, not inform. And so, read through those, understand, and like I said, I use that word marketplace very advisedly, so to speak, because I know a lot of them are promising marketplaces when, the reality is that there doesn't need to be a blockchain marketplace in whatever they're doing because there's no demand for it, no real demand that you can already show. Anyways, in our particular case, the marketplace is Certnet is a consortium, and we'll talk more about what is a consortium blockchain network. But as it means it's a hybrid between private and public. And it rewards node operators, certification nodes, and also enables the companies to run enterprise level dApps on the blockchain without actually having to maintain their own infrastructure. Because we understand that legal, insurance, and real estate, they don't want to run this stuff. But we also understand that there is a lot of individuals and others in the crypto space who are more than happy to run those nodes for them. And you can see that right now for everybody who's running mining nodes, who are running master nodes. And I would say a lot of our target, at least economically, some of those are going to be master nodes. They're different technologically, and they're different in a number of ways. But we would expect that they would see that those rewards in being able to run our certification nodes. But much like much like a notary, not technologically, and again, very different from notarizing blockchains or notarizing apps. That's not what we're talking about, but simply the fact of, a notary is a third party who has been given authority and is trusted ultimately because of that authority now to make changes to a ledger. And so they do that, and also in a cryptographic manner that protects, so that even if one of them or a number of them are corrupted, it cannot corrupt the whole. So in any case, but it rewards the node operators, and also it rewards creators of the dApps and smart contract standards. We were talking about standards a little earlier, and we'll actually have, I'll probably create a video or two just to cover what we're looking at in that. But effectively, it's a way so that in these markets, that those who actually develop smart contracts and standards that are capable of being reused by others in the industry, that they can actually be rewarded for that on a per use basis. So every time someone uses one of their standard protocols, then they would get some tiny bit of cert. Oh, by the way, and that's our coin, is Cert, CERT, and that is how that is our own native cryptocurrency, and will be used to do transfers and rewards across the network. Now, okay, lastly, let's talk about Certified Works. Okay, Certified Works is, let's say, what Ethereum, if you look at Ethereum and Consensus, Certnet, and Certified Works. It's kind of how those work. We're the Certified Works group is effectively builds decentralized applications and APIs that run on Certnet and various related SaaS services, including certified photo. So part of that, they will also work with to work with certain groups to help create the industry standards, and work with different companies to pull the APIs and whatnot to be able to bring their current applications onto the blockchain. Again, that's a large part about what CertifiedTrue is about. Is not necessarily just creating new businesses, but it is taking these businesses and blockchaining them, so to speak, so that now blockchain is integrated into their current user interfaces and their current business process, so that their own offerings now, they can pass this on and charge accordingly. But by that, Now, these guys can drive a lot of volume very quickly because they already have business, they already have customers that simply need a better way of doing what they are already doing. Let's see. Talk very quickly. Revenue sources, blah. There's lots of things to talk. Take a look at the different paper on our website. Check us out. Obviously, feel free to contact us, especially if you've got a bunch of money and looking to invest. We're always happy to talk. But it's we love to talk blockchain, all of us. And so I'd say one of the things is as a business model, we're focused on actually providing blockchain services again to both the individual businesses and the service providers. I can talk more really about the tokenomics of our internal system and everything, and some other one, because that's certainly worth an entire video by itself. Most people really don't think about it. In a business model, I just want to say, when you guys are out there looking at everybody's white paper, the first question you should ask is, first of all, does this company have a real business model that actually passes a smell test? You kind of think, yeah, that sounds like it might work. Because if it doesn't, you really don't need to go further. Meaning, does this thing actually solve a real problem for somebody who actually would pay money or something of value to actually fix that problem? And how do you know that? Okay, not just a want to have. Okay, that would be nice to have, but like, oh my God, I need this thing. And that usually because they're trying to spend money to fix the thing already, and it's not working very well. So that's usually how you figure that out. First of all, do they have a business model? Second of all, okay, does it need blockchain to actually fix the problem? And in many cases, no. There are a lot of solutions out there that frankly are already addressing it. And just because you add blockchain to the name of it doesn't help improve it. The real question is, blockchain is expensive. And so does it actually add more value than the extra overhead that it is creating? So you need to be able to answer that. Next, okay, so yeah, hey, it's got a business model that works. It has a, it really does need blockchain because blockchain is the best way to solve this problem. Okay, well, do you need a coin or a token? What for and why? Because you can really simplify things. Believe me, if you can wipe out that part of it, it's so much easier to run distributed ledger technologies. The incentive models are by far some of the biggest headaches to be able to code and program in. So, and if you do, you say, yes, I need all these things. Now, the last question is, okay, so you need a coin, but why should I have one? And that's one that not many people really can answer. We'll get into those and answer certainly further on. But I might say that just in general, I think a very useful analogy for what our overall vision is right now what Ripple is to the banking industry and money transfer industry. CertifiedTrue is looking to be for the legal insurance and real estate industries. And those of you who really know what Ripple's model, I know there are lots of, oh my gosh, there's all these people complaining, oh, they're not really true crypto, or they're not this, or they're not that. But the fact is that, notice they're developing applications for large B2B enterprises, and then they're using their currency and their network currency kind of as a web between some of those applications. But I will tell you that where I see some of these other networks, etc., who knows which one's going to turn up in 10 years from now, 5 years from now even. But I will bet you that Ripple will still be around and bigger and bigger. And for the most of it, something like Ripple will be largely invisible. Um, their whole company will be largely invisible to the average everyday person in the public, but they will be a giant actually working on many of the payment protocols underneath much of the payments industry. So I think that's just far as like an analogy of what we're looking to be in a different industry, a different group of industries. And I think that if anything, perhaps our market potential is even bigger. So that's what I see for us in the future. And I'm gonna, you know what, about 30 minutes right here. That's why I'm gonna wrap it up and say till next time. Arrivederci. Hope you've enjoyed this live and raw session. Totally. What is no editing, etc. No one has edited it. This is live, authenticated, and certified true session, and hope to help answer more of your questions in the future. Thanks, guys.